Hello, everybody. This is Stephanie from the Canadian Schoolhouse, and we are here on a regular live stream, bi-weekly live stream. We're here every other week doing a live stream, and of course, all the recordings are there for you to watch as well. So you can, you never have to really be here live. It's nice to be here live when we have people. You can chat and ask questions, but you can always go and check out all our recordings just in the you can either do it in the events section, because every one of our live streams is an event as well, a Facebook event. If you're on Facebook, if you're watching us on YouTube, then you can still see all our recorded videos on there somewhere. I'm not as familiar with YouTube, so I don't know where they show up, but I feel like there might be in a playlist. Am I right, Christine? Will they be?
They're on yes, they're I believe on the TOS magazine channel. You'll find a
Mhm.
Canadian playlist, or just search TCS. I'm sure you'll find us on there. Especially this one will come up as one of the latest videos. So yeah, and just scroll through. It shouldn't be hard to find.
Uh-huh. There's actually so much great videos on there of assorted topics from company-wide kind of stuff, schoolhouse teachers and just the old schoolhouse stuff about the magazine and homeschooling. And so
Yes,
anyway, lots of great videos. If you're a
homeschool lives.
homeschooler, you're
Yep.
going to want to check out the YouTube channel for the old schoolhouse, and you'll see our broadcast there and so much more. So we'll go through just a couple announcements we have of what's going on at the Canadian Schoolhouse, as well as just our bigger company, the Old Schoolhouse. So see what we have for you. So maybe I'll let you flip through the announcements so I don't get that all jumbled up, and then I'll
There you
just
go.
talk a little bit about them. Oh, so our virtual family retreat, and we did this for the first time last year, but it was just such a blessing to do, such a blessing to put this on, as well as what feedback we got from people that attended. So we will have another one in the fall in November, but this one that we did last year, all the stuff is up there. So just go to that website address that you see there, virtualfamilyretreat.com, and you can see what that looked like last year and get yourself excited to attend our one coming up in November. That we're starting to get our planning underway, and speakers set up and all that kind of stuff
Mhm.
currently for that. So, and what's on next there? Right. So sign up for our e-blast. So you can just go to the canadianschoolhouse.com, and you can see that's our homepage for the Canadian division of the Old Schoolhouse. And just scroll on down till you find the part where it says to sign up for emails, and you will get weekly emails from us just about Canadian um, specific to Canadian homeschoolers, although there's so much about homeschooling that's not doesn't matter where you live. It's all the same great stuff. So whether you live in Canada or not, you're going to find that really helpful.
And also on that site.
Uh-huh. Why don't you share about this one, Christine?
Yeah, so we're always looking for homeschoolers to share their stories, because there's no, I mean, everybody on your journey, no matter what part of your journey you're on, you need encouragement, and you'll always find that you're struggling with something, not sure what to do with something, and
Mhm.
there is someone out there, and maybe it's you,
Mhm.
that has the answers to these questions that other homeschooling families have. So please, if you've got a story to tell, some advice on how to teach a certain subject, or how to overcome these homeschooling obstacles, we want to hear from you. Other people want to hear from you,
Mhm.
and don't feel discouraged that you're not a professional writer. We'll take care of all of that. We just want your story, and we'll make it look nice and pretty and put it up on the website so that everybody can hear your story. So also on the main page of the canadianschoolhouse.com, just keep on scrolling down to find that part that says share your homeschooling life, and then get in contact with us. And as a perk, for every 5 pieces that you publish, you'll get a $50 giftogram, which is great because you can choose from so many options where to treat yourself. So
Mhm.
that's incentive for me. to do it. Um, and yeah, it's open up to for our teenage writers as well. So if you want to get your teenager to practice writing, this is also a great way to encourage them to do that and get a little perk on the side. So yeah. And then next,
The Homeschool Review Crew. So this is a great way to get free products and more importantly, to share your experience with a product with other homeschoolers. So we have a section of the old, a department of the old schoolhouse that is the Homeschool Review Crew. And on that is all kinds of reviews on there. So we're helping businesses get their word out about their products that are especially for the homeschooling audience. And we're also helping homeschoolers be able to um, more easily find those reviews. So it's all on one site. You can go on that site and search it if you're just looking for reviews. But we would really love to have Canadian reviewers. We have some companies that are really just looking to go to the Canadian market, so they want a Canadian reviewer, and we have a very small group. And we want to we're growing that as we speak. We're growing that, and it's great to see more Canadians coming on to do that. But just know that one of these great perks is that you get all the products for free. So that's your incentive, that you get products for free. You're not forced to review anything. We really want people to be interested in what they're reviewing and give an honest review on it. And anyway, if you that sounds like something you might want to do, then go and check out that web address, homeschoolcrew.com, and see what that is, get more details on that.
and right now, there is a summer challenge for Schoolhouse Teachers members. You can still participate if you're not a member, but if you are a member, you can grab some free printables, which include a badge that you can use to take your pictures as part of the challenge, and some trackers that you can use for either the two categories, which are to challenge yourself to read more. And you can decide whether you want to read more pages, read more chapters, read entire books. And so those trackers will help you keep track, and just take a picture and use the hashtag STSummer22. And the other challenge is to visit an historical site around your area, city, or maybe you're traveling to different cities or provinces. Or I'm saying provinces. If you're in America as well, this is open up to everybody. So, or other states, wherever you are, just take your badge along with you. The printout has about 4 badges, so in case you lose one, you got extras, or you got enough for the entire family. You could print it, you could laminate it, cut it out and laminate it, and then yeah, just show your badge, and use the hashtag so we can follow along, and let everyone share what you are doing for your summer challenge this year. So that you could find all the details on schoolhouseteachers.com. Yeah, so we're looking forward to seeing all the posts on that.
Yeah, just a fun little event throughout the summer. Give you a good reason to snap some pictures and share that on social media. Not only for your own benefit to have that little record of your summer fun and summer activities, but so we can see that too. It's really nice to be able to watch that on our side and see some of that stuff coming in that homeschoolers are doing with their families. So we'll get on to our content. Now, we were going to have a children's book author, Chrissy Metch, come in, and I was going to interview her, ask her a few questions, and she was going to share a bit about really using books to nurture imagination. Now, we can actually use books for so many things, but just the books that she has created, that she has published herself, as well as on her website, Duckling Publishing. So if in the Facebook event for this video, I mean, if you're watching this live, you should be able to go right to the discussion, and you can see links to that. to go to her publishing company page, you'll see her books and other ones, and these are just really great. Um, really great. This is what this publishing company focuses on, is just these really imagination, a world, really getting your kids to deal with different issues that you can maybe do through reading some of these books, especially younger kids that can't just don't have that communication as well. Actually, what am I saying? I've got mine are 11 and 14, and I'm like looking for ways to like, how can I get them to communicate more about some of those topics that are especially harder to talk about, right? And that's a great way to do that through books. And now, hopefully, I'm not sure what happened with Chrissy, and she's coming from the UK, so something must have came up. But I will share that I got a chance to talk with her uh, a couple of weeks ago, just to be able to see her face to face, ask her a little bit about one thing about how to pronounce her last name. So I got that. It's Chrissy Metch. A French origin there, so there could be a little lesson just on that alone. Um, but I really just love the way that she expressed. She had a really nice background story to her latest book, The Great Crown Mystery, and just how that came up more so from, or at least she was inspired from it, from the imagination of her son, and just what they were talking about. So I wanted to share a little bit about what she's got going on. Hopefully, maybe she can make a few posts in the event description. So if you're watching this recording, maybe you'll already see stuff there. And she shared a bit of stuff about her story, and as far as being an author. But one of the things that just was great to be able to have a children's book author on is because children's books, well, they just come in all shapes and sizes. And I don't just mean the physical dimension of them. They just come in so many different flavors, I guess, of how we can use books in so many different ways for our children. So one being, imagination. And I know myself and my boys are really into superheroes, and there's a few books with that, obviously lots and lots of movies on the whole Marvel and DC comic world. And 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 so I use that because that's just already an interest. I actually use some scenes from watching those movies together, or reading the comics together, and that I try to grab that as an opportunity to get them to use their imagination, because there's so much imagination used in those comics and the movies as well. Um, so that just being like one example of getting, once you find something that your kids are just really really interested in, and it appeals to them, you can use that to nurture their imagination in different ways, right? Kind of springboarding off of that. Now I'm thinking of one book series that my youngest has gone through. So he's 11, and I think he's read that through a couple times now, and it's the Dragon Masters. So lots of imagination there. It's creating a whole world of dragons, and these kids that have connections to their dragon. They have a specific dragon, and really it's a great stories. And he actually really just openly talks about the stories a lot. So when he does that, I use that opportunity to, I don't know, just get a good conversation going. It's just a good opportunity to have a conversation. But of course,
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, putting my little home educator hat on, I want to try to get him to like express himself more. And I'll also use those kind of stories to get him to write stories, right? Or write even just short sentences of using those books as an example. And sometimes I use that with the wording they use. I remember he's writing a story not too long ago, and I grabbed that one of those books just to look at how they used uh how they showed people talking, right? So putting it in parentheses, and showing the different ways that it's not just all saying, well, Drake said, and it's, he said, right? They're using different words to show how they're exclaimed or shouted or whispered or groaned or, just to show who's talking. So anyway, so many different ways that we can use books. And I know, Christine, you probably got a few ideas on your mind, whether it's imagination. I bet you could come up with lots for imagination because you are very creative yourself. So I bet you use books in that capacity. But share how we can use our those children's books with our kids in different ways.
Well, I mean, it's good to read the silly stuff, right? To
Yeah.
allow them to read, to explore silly things, because I mean, it's good to have I know, if you haven't seen the poll yet on Facebook, Steph had put that in there to see, what you look for in children's books. And
Mhm.
so I think so far it's sitting as, you want a moral for the story. And of course, yeah, I mean, we don't want to read stuff just for reading. I mean, we want it to be meaningful, right?
It's
Um,
going to be meaningful in some way, right?
but it just, when you give your children the range of, from serious to silly, then it encourages their brain. So when they're processing, when, like when your son is, telling the story back to you, those things stay in their head. So when they start looking at other things, they're like, wow. And then, so then they start thinking, oh, what happens if the dragon did this? Or what happens if you throw like apples into the story? What happens then? So then the wheels start turning. And you'd be surprised if you just encourage them to just go at it and let their imaginations go. And like, sometimes I know my kids have said stuff and I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, they will tell me stories that make no sense whatsoever. But I don't stop them, because, unless it's like really, really weird.
Uh-huh.
Which doesn't
Yeah,
happen
yeah,
often,
and
but
sometimes we should need to do that too, like just,
sometimes you need to just like,
okay, we're going the wrong
we got
direction here.
that. But for the most part, like, and let them talk about it, let them explain, like, "Okay, so how did you come up with a dragon that wears a ballet shoes," or something like that? Like, how did you come up with that idea? And
Mhm.
watch how they put it together, because then, if they're explaining it to you, then they obviously thought it through, and it makes sense in their minds. Obviously, when they get older, they'll realize, "Wow, that was a silly thought." Um, like,
Yeah.
I know my 9-year 10-year, he's 10-year old, we were going through some old papers, and he looked at his grade 1 writing stories that he wrote, and like, they were the silliest things about um donuts and cheese, and like, they were proper sentences, but
Yeah.
it was just a silly story, but like, that's where their minds were, and at that point it made sense to them.
Mhm.
And so, but now, I mean, having him write a story or tell a story, there's so much more details, because they're allowed to just let their minds wander, and find things and pull things in. And so, yeah, if you expose them to different characters, it doesn't always have to be about a boy and a girl. It could be a cat with funny shoes, or
Mhm.
what are some of the favorite silly things that they've got out there? Dinosaurs, talking dinosaur, just the sky's the limit
Mhm.
to children, because, they like the bright, vibrant sort of characters. So, and definitely if they're doing something funny,
You know what
definitely.
comes to mind is the Chronicles of Narnia, which is not it's not a picture book, and I mean, it's
No,
a great book to read to your kids at any age. And of
yes,
course, there's a few movies out with
of course.
of a couple of those books, but that just comes to mind because I actually have only recently read that series, and I haven't read all the series, but I do have it sitting on my bookshelf now to eventually read them all. And I just really love it. Not just so I knew more about the Christian background of it, and a little bit of that, um, analogy of Christian principles within the Chronicles of Narnia. Um, but really just the what C.S. Lewis comes up with for some of the characters and what they can do. And of course, I mean everything to do with them too, the setting a scene, and it just comes to mind of that imagination that as adults, unless you're actually in that that's your living, um as adults we actually kind of lose some of that, right, if we're not exercising that regularly. And I really don't want my boys to lose that. Now, they don't have to be authors and publish books to do that. Even getting into adulthood, like I even think myself, there's a number of things I do to try to get that imagination. And some of that is just some of these silly conversations with my boys. I think having children around keeps our imaginations kind of going, um, with being able to talk to them, because as you got said in a comment not too long ago, it's like, just like, we don't understand that. Like, it made perfect sense to your son a little while ago, but now, even as your own kid, as that child got a little bit older, still a child, it's like, oh, that was pretty silly, wasn't it? And I know I did that just with boys, and I had to like hold myself back because I'm not understanding it. Like, I'm like, just like, this doesn't really make any sense. And me and my, analytical adult mind, that and I just actually had to let that go a little bit and just just be like,
Yes.
okay, like, this is not it's not bad. And really, I'm the main purpose for it is for set and structure, right? Like, I mean, the
Yeah.
main purpose to get them to write these stories was about writing a story,
Yeah.
not so much the content. I mean,
Yes.
wanted it to all make sense,
Yeah.
at least to a certain
Of
degree, right?
course.
But I really had to hold back a little bit. So, maybe as a mom or a dad out there, you need to just hear that a little bit. That even though your kids are saying and doing really silly things, unless it's like inappropriate silly, and I step in for that, but that
Yeah.
just let that imagination go, because there's all kinds of wonderful things that can come from that.
And
That's a
you'll
great
find that they can just they could come up with the next greatest character, right? You never know. And that kinda leads into writing books in the future. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it's exposing them to that opportunity. Nathan Higgins here, how I say, we've always enjoyed reading books in the car from baby age to college, and
mhm.
that is such a vital point that actually we should we should not stop. Not stop reading to our kids just because they're no longer children anymore, or should I say, no longer like younger anymore. um like, reading boys, so I've got 11 and 14, and I still read to them. For instance, we were reading the Chronicles of Narnia together. There's another book that I got that's a really big book, but it's really creative in that, like, really really imaginative, and it's got some great opportunities to talk about things under it. So I see actually Chrissy has come in. Wonderful. Nice surprise, Chrissy. Let's put her on the screen there and we can.
Hi, I just want to say I'm so very sorry. We had a family member with a COVID incident, so we had to get them safe. They were panicking, and it was just,
Oh,
you know what this is like in this new age that we're living in. So I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure that family member was safe, and she's good. So sorry, I'm terribly
Uh-huh.
sorry about that. So
For sure. Well, I'm glad you made it on before we ended ended up here. So I'm glad you just decided to pop on anyway. Um, That's great. So we've just been talking a little bit about books and just ways that we as moms, right, just get to share that um, like joy. I'm going to call it a joy. It is such a joy of imagination and being able to express that, not even just as a kid, right, and that's what I want to do anyway. Be able to nurture my kids to still keep that imagination alive when they get older. And so definitely for you, Chrissy, I know that your imagination is just beaming with all kinds of stuff with all the books you've written. Um, uh,
absolutely.
so maybe actually you can start off and let us know a little bit about your latest book, because that was kind of it, and that's a little bit of a short story you shared, and I shared that just a little bit earlier on, how that story came to be, and I didn't share too much besides that. you were inspired a lot by your son's imagination. So why don't you share the background story to that, and a little bit about what that book is about?
Absolutely. And sorry again for the delay. I really feel bad about that.
No
Um,
problem at all. Family
so
first.
yeah, so my son, we are from New Zealand and we moved to London 3 years ago, and we were doing the tourist thing before COVID. And my son at the time, who was I think 4.5, we were standing outside Buckingham Palace, and he said to me, "Why does the Queen need so many rooms?" And I thought, that's
Good
a
question.
really good question. And I thought to myself, why does she need so many rooms? And that spurred on the whole research of actually how many rooms are there in the Buckingham Palace, which is 775, and
Woo!
what could be in those rooms. And my son, immediately the ideas would just start flowing. He's like, well, there could be a room filled with chocolate. There could be a room filled with dinosaurs. There could be a room like an aquarium. Or I was just like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. So the Great Crown Mystery, in a way, is a Where's Wally inside Buckingham Palace. So we
Mhm.
put in a learning element in there, so that the kids have to find other items within each room. And then at the end of the book, it describes what each item is and how it came to be, and why it is an important, element to the story. And yeah, we just had so much fun. So he was a huge part in putting this book together. So
That's awesome. I like that. Now I haven't read the whole book, but I've just looked at it on your site. So I like that it's kind of adding that, which I look for in children's books, right? If there's a little, like, maybe like a knowledge element you can get to it, like just plain
yes.
silly and fun is okay too. But I really do look for that. Okay, can I get a nice fun story and then get a little bit of like knowledge? So yeah, like with that one, for instance, you would learn a little bit about Buckingham Palace, which I know nothing about, besides that it is in London, England, right? It's in England. I know that
That's
it's in London.
That's correct. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's in London.
Um, and and then also to uh I love the illustrations. So there was something I put in our Facebook group, Homeschooling with the Canadian Schoolhouse, because I was just curious actually when I started thinking and kind of preparing for this. Now I just posted that poll yesterday, but it really got to me, like, what is it the parents really look for the most? So I think all of those things. So great illustrations, um, really catchy words. I love the books. I'm going to say words is the most for me, because I love reading aloud, and I love being able to read aloud. I can remember a couple books that just had the raw. It was the real whole rhythm with it, right? Of a, not so much like a poem, but like that, where it was it had some rhyming words, and the syllables were broken down in certain ways, and I really like when an author can play with that really well, and just
Mhm.
that I can read it. I think it's fun to listen to for kids,
Yeah.
and it's just a little bit enjoying for me as well. And then also like the moral to the story. So is there something like I can discuss with my kids um, after the book, or not? And it doesn't even have to be just right after. Often we'll talk about something from a book because it relates to something else that's going on in our day, in our life, or something like that. So um,
Absolutely. And rhyming is like really dear to me, and also attention span. I find with children who don't have the best attention span, like my son when he's
mhm,
little, I think rhyming captures them because it's a rhythm that they can grasp, and
yeah.
they enjoy that rhythm. And then as they get older, my son also pulls out words going, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? So
Uh-huh.
but definitely when he was littler, it was the rhythm and the rhyming books that, kept his attention for the longest. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that helps a lot. Even though I do read more adult books, like that my boys wouldn't
yeah.
necessarily read, or even as they were younger too, they wouldn't necessarily read. Uh, I would find, like, for those, so chapter books, right? No pictures really involved, or the pictures are on, several pages apart. So it's really just the story reading aloud. Definitely can't get quite as long as a story that really has that, like the rhyming and the rhythm and everything with that. So and being able to keep our kids' attention span as anybody that educates their own children knows, like you need to find really that um
It's like a sweet spot, right? You've got
yes. And it's not the same for every child.
it's
So,
absolutely not the same. I do quite a few readings to schools and bigger groups, like I do markets and libraries.
oh
Um,
yes.
and
So you've
every
got the whole big group trying to
Yeah, and
engage them,
every group
right?
is very different, and what they get out of the story is very different. And yeah, so you have to be how you read the book to each group is different as well, and what they get out of it is quite special. You may just stop after a couple of pages,
Mhm.
or sometimes you can get through the whole book, or or you might even just start before the questions start coming. So
Mhm.
it's and I like to cater the questions into some of the groups are very curious, so they'll start asking, how old is the queen?
Yeah.
Like, what does a jubilee mean? Like, what is a beef eater? Like, what's a guard? Like, why is there a crown? What, really deep questions, like why does she need a crown? Like all of these things. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's easier just to not even finish the story and just go by page and then answer questions. So
Mhm. Yeah, that would be a really neat atmosphere to be in, as far as having so many kids to read a story to and getting all those different perspectives, as well as even for our kids to be in group settings like that. Um, even to get together with a bunch of other and I mean, as far as homeschooling, like co-ops are pretty can be pretty popular, where you're getting a bunch of families together, and being able to do that group reading has that benefit of being the kids being able to hear those different perspectives as well. And kind of to just another way to really nurture that imagination, because I think part of our imagination is it really comes from the influence of what we put around us, whether it be people and books and movies, and right, all that stuff can either be expanded or sometimes make that imagination kind of go within itself, especially if the individual doesn't have the opportunity. If all they're doing is looking at, so just let's say a screen. Now I certainly do, my boys watch movies, and they watch shows, they watch things that great imagination has been put into them um to make that movie. Or but if all they did really was watch somebody else's imagination, that's not really expanding theirs as much. So I try to counter that with, okay, well, now we're going to get some topic about that. Or sometimes we're watching things, I usually don't do like a question period or a comment period, I call it, because tell them to just, well, comment on, tell me what stood out to you about whatever we watched, right? So that's kind of one of the things I do to really try to get them to, and sometimes they just say the silliest things, like that are like, okay, I was looking for something serious, but okay, I'm gonna take that.
yeah,
Because you're using your head.
that's right. And during the lockdown, the libraries and the bookshops, I mean, we all know we couldn't go to libraries and we couldn't go to
Mhm.
bookshops. And so one of the things I did was join some other book groups and download their free iPad books. And what my son and I got, we didn't do it all the time because of the screen time, but he
Mhm.
used to do reviews with me on these books. And it was a way of getting
Oh
him
yeah.
to understand what he got out of the stories. It was really
Mhm.
interesting what he would get out of a story, and what he wanted me to put down as the review. It started off, very simple, was I liked the book too. Oh, this person really felt this way, and then that person really felt that way.
Mhm.
So it got evolved the more that we did. So it was quite fascinating actually how deep he got about what the stories were about. So
Uh-huh. That is neat.
yeah.
So tell a little now. Definitely, your being a children's book author is gonna influence maybe how you can answer this. But especially like as a mom and reading to your kids, and like share a little bit, a few tips you might have, that how parents can work with their kids to just help to nurture that imagination, kind of like expand their individual imagination,
Absolutely,
for
and
each of their kids.
what you said before is so true. They kind of reflect what is around them. They're giant sponges, right? So,
Hmm.
and because I love books so much, I'm constantly either reading a book or creating a book or writing a book. And every Sunday morning we have a writing session together. So he has like a little notebook. Hunter, my son, who's just turned 7 now, but we've been doing this for a while. So I used to put a notebook, an empty notebook, next to his bed every night. Still do. So if he
Mhm.
feels like he wants to write anything about his day or draw a picture, he can. And
Oh, yeah.
you'll find the most interesting things inside these notebooks underneath.
Uh-huh.
And on Sundays we do a writing session together, and it could be 2 sentences, it could be a page. I mean, he comes up with a story from scratch, and I share mine, and he shares his, and we share it around the family and things like that. And it's just a nice routine that we've got into. So that's a really good way that you can encourage. And then he's like, "What did you
Mm.
write?" And I'll be like, "Well, what did you write?" And then we compare what we
Mhm.
wrote. But he wouldn't do it unless I sat down and wrote too. So
Yeah.
it's an encouraged event. The same with reading chapter books. If I'm reading, he wants to sit down next to me and read as well. So
Mhm. Yeah, that one's one I can definitely do with my kids.
yeah,
I haven't done it a little bit now, just how life ebbs and flows that way, right? Like we get into a habit of
absolutely.
doing something and then something changes and yeah, I haven't sat down and read with it. Now they read, I get them to sit down and read every day, but I haven't done that reading. And I actually love that a little bit because it then forces me to sit down and then I try to just read fiction because I don't do that very much. Um, Usually most of my reading is nonfiction, like I'm trying to learn something or
Yeah.
something like that. So it's a great opportunity. I also want to pick up on your tip about writing with your kids. So again, I would just personally, I love to write and to get that opportunity to write. And I have this dream that will be realized one day. It's not something I'm actively working on, but I have this calling that I really do want to do a book series and something that is just like fantasy and has lots of different just made out like really where you need lots of imagination to create the characters and a little bit of doing that longer type story. I don't really know whether these are going to be like books for younger readers or older readers, but I'm focusing on kids somewhere, so it might just be like for teen readers or something like that. But to give that opportunity actually to write together, really almost. So if you actually had, oh well, let's do a story about, maybe to do a certain topic, and we're gonna just do a story about this, and I want you to write about this character, and then I'm gonna write about this character. For me, I have I have two boys at home, and so yeah, for the two of them, for us to sit down, and then I'm hoping it's gonna be a little because to get them to write is not easy.
It's really
So
hard, and they love writing
yeah.
about what they love. It could be as
Mhm.
simple as, if they like Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario Brothers or Pokemon, it would be like, come up with your own Pokemon character and write about them.
Uh-huh.
They're very 'cause I don't see it then as writing or a chore. It's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes, I'd love to write about my own Pokemon character," or what I would do with my son is, "Hey, I've come up with this Pokemon character." Show a horrible drawing.
Mhm.
And I've written about this. How would you excuse me, how would you battle them? Or, you gotta put it in their own context of what they watch or are into, and then they're like, "What do you mean? I would totally win that battle." And then I was like, "Well, write it out." So it's finding a common ground or a common interest, to get them to write about, and they don't even see what you're doing. They don't think of it as writing. It's just part of the game or the thing that they're doing, and then you can say
Mhm.
you could turn that into a book, and they're like, "What?" And you get a Pokemon book out of the library, I'm like, "You can make this."
Yeah. I know we've got a few of them sitting on our shelves, so
Yeah.
that would actually be a great for my older one isn't so much into Pokemon or not as much anymore, but my younger one still talks about them quite a bit. So
Yeah, so it's
that's
just bringing in that common ground, common interest, and,
mhm.
doing it with them and saying, showing them, and then they really want to always do better than you, so,
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I wanted to highlight on your publishing site, so on
Yeah.
ducklingpublishing.com, right? It is a .com.
Yes, yes, it is
Yes.
not.
Um, So one of the things that I think is great for homeschool parents is that you have teacher's notes with
Yes.
not quite all of the books you have on your publishing site, but for a lot of them, there are teacher's notes. So share a little bit about what parents are going to be able to get from those teacher's notes from the book. What does
Yeah.
that help them with?
Yeah, so the idea was with Duckling Publishing, I mean, imagination and story is absolutely key, but as a parent, we all want to get something out of it if we can. And it's hard to just, well, I found it hard myself to even come up with things to know what to talk about or what to even
Mhm.
teach. And again, you want that common ground. So we tried to make it easy. And so within the teacher's notes on Duckling Publishing, it gives you ideas of activities that you could take away from the books, interests that you could talk about, or what are some key themes that are within the books that probably would not have been noticeable because we don't make it obvious, like in your face, what these themes are. It's like subtle themes that are out through the book, like friendship or, working as a team together or, or not being the odd one out kind of thing. And our differences are okay, that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
teacher's notes give you a place, maybe once they've read the book, that you can talk about some things to do with it or set that up before they read the book and go, hey, these are some of the questions as you're reading. Let's see where you get to and if you notice any of these things. So
Mhm. Yeah, that is great to just have that little bit of a prompt. I mean, we as parents, we can pick up on some of that stuff on our own. We don't always need, teachers' notes to go along with it, but just being able to have that from the author's perspective of some of the underlying stuff that I know sometimes I don't even pick up on when I've got books and reading through, notes and teaching notes or whole workbooks that go along with some books, right? That it's just like, wow, I wouldn't have grabbed that out
yeah,
myself to be able to even use that as a talking point. So,
we've got Max and His Big Imagination, which is an imagination series based off my nephew Max, and a lot of those stories started when he was little and then transferred to my son. Are like first time experiences, right? Like
mhm,
my son was scared of the dark. He was scared of his own shadow. We didn't even know what a shadow was.
mhm,
He was scared of the ocean when he saw it for the first time, like because it's loud and it's quite scary. And
mhm.
when he sneezed for the first time getting a cold, he got afraid of that. So, the imagination series is a way of putting it into perspective, a fun way of using your imagination to overcome these strange new experiences that all kids have.
Mhm.
And the teacher's notes are also in there, and it gives you some activities around how you can use, you know, everyday objects. Like when my son was scared of the dark, in the book, we've got a cave that you make at home with blankets and the table, and so you can use that to use your imagination. And yeah, there's just and everyday objects that we can use around us to help our kids like go through these normal things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just nice to have those, as I mentioned that earlier about using books to kind of talk about topics that are sometimes hard to talk about, right? And sometimes we can find books that are specific to that have been written. And I know I remember when we talked before, that you'd shared that too about this, Max. What did you say it was? Max and His Big Imagination.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Max and His Big Imagination, that lots of those were just really good opportunities to be able to use to have this talking point, right? To read
Yeah.
the story, and then from that, oh well, you can actually bring in some of our own stuff, so some stuff that's actually happening, um, to the child or to somebody else, that
Yeah.
right, that they witness, and it is hard to talk about. So, I love books, for that reason. um, I kind of
Absolutely.
mentioned how getting my kids to talk about, their emotions is not an easy task.
No, it's a great way, and by doing it in story form, for some reason, it doesn't make it such a big deal that they
Yeah.
think it's like you asking them. It's like, well, it's part of the story, and sometimes when my son's having a hard time communicating, I'm like, well, how about we write it down as a story? Will it make that better? And then he's really into that. So,
Mhm.
I mean, at the moment, he's scared of spiders, so we're thinking about how to somehow make a Max Imagination story about spiders. I'm not quite sure how that will go, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
Watch this space.
Oh, I've got a few of those things.
Yeah.
Spiders for one and snakes for another. So, and that's
Yeah.
actually, you know what? And I, you're doing it. You're coming up with some of this stuff, and you've got a great book series that covers some of these topics that you're. But you know what? We don't even have to ever plan to publish it. But that is actually a really great way that we can just create a story. And even if you had never read the story again, although hopefully you would, but just between as a mom, I could write a story that really speaks to that one, and especially the ways that we can make it look pretty good too. Like we can make it look printed on paper, so it's not just handwritten, right? Like we can
Absolutely.
self-publish
Yes.
uh,
Yeah. And
in
I
a
try
very
to.
low-key way.
Yeah, and my son was very self-conscious of his writing because he's still learning to write and he's left-handed.
Hmm.
And left-handed people find it hard. Like his B's and his P's are always like a P or a B, always backwards around the wrong way. Um,
Hmm.
so he's a bit self-conscious of that, you know. So I type out his stories for him. And then I share them to the family, and then he gets all this encouragement about his story, and he doesn't feel as self-conscious about his writing. And I said to him, if you write a story, I'll publish it for you. So, and this is the process that you go through, editing, and
Hmm.
and it's built his confidence up about, oh, I don't have to actually show someone my writing. If obviously he's getting better at his writing and he'll get to that
Hmm.
stage, but in the interim, I don't want his encouragement to be, pulled down when he's such a good storyteller. So, so it's just that as well. You don't know, they might feel a bit self-conscious about writing their writing.
Hmm. Yeah. This whole self-publishing kind of opportunity is
Yeah.
actually, I think every family, whether you're homeschooling or not, should
Oh,
take advantage of that, because and
it's
even just how you said, right? Like nobody else really needs to see it, but you can actually really self-publish it, and you can even get it printed to look like, you know,
absolutely.
somewhat like, and get it shipped to you, right, at a very low cost. I don't know all the details, but because I've heard so many people doing that, homeschoolers and just different people doing that, they never plan to publish it. What they have, they just wanted it for their own use, for their kids.
I have a book called Lucy the Ballerina, and it was one of my friends' niece. She had a niece, and she said, "Can you please write a book about Lucy? It's just for us. It's just for the family."
Yeah.
And Lucy was quite a character, and she's a girly girl, but she's also a bit of a tomboy. And so the story is all about Lucy and what they want in the book, and it's about what she loves best at the end of the book is what she loves all the way through, but what she loves best is family. So it's about her family, and it was so good. It got such a good. And I said to them, "Would it be okay if I popped it up on Amazon, or like if I published it?" And they said, "Absolutely." And it's actually the best-selling book.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't published. It was published. It was just made for the family upon
Hmm.
request, but it's about a real little girl called Lucy. And I think all the successful stories out there are based on real people, real kids. All my stories are based on real kids so far, or have real kid influence. And I think, those are the best ones to write about, because then if people debate them, it's like, well, I'm sorry, but that's actually Lucy. That's actually what she's like. So, yeah.
Well, I'm using this as a prompt that we're going to do something really soon, whether it's a live stream or content, but it's just sharing more and encouraging people to self-publish for all kinds of different reasons. I mean, you can self-publish if you maybe want to be an author. That's self-publish first.
And
And
it's a good way to test the market. You can always
Mhm,
take it down. It's
mhm,
not there for life.
that's right.
But then you might find a gem that is as popular, and people that are like-minded like you are, that have the same interests, which is so special when you find them. And then they're
Yeah.
kind of friends for life, and you get, and then you got people coming to you for wanting to write more, which is really unexpected then.
Mhm.
I was only going to do one book for Max and His Big Imagination, and I thought, that's it. I'm just doing one book. I'm not doing any other
Huh.
books. And then people said, write another one. We really like it. I need it for my grandkids. And then write another one. And and Max has got 7 books in the Max series now. So it's just they keep saying, what's Max scared of now? We really need to know.
Huh.
So
It'll continue for a while, it sounds
yeah.
like.
So you never know what will come out of what when you start.
Mhm.
what you'll start seeing in our kids' world, because they're seeing it for the first time, and it's just so special seeing it through their eyes. I can't get enough of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today,
Yeah.
Chrissy. This was
Yeah,
great.
so
Even though you came in late,
I
I
know.
am so glad, because I really would have wanted to try to make another time that we could get you
Oh,
on
I
a
would love
on a
to.
live stream
About
here. So
self-publishing, and I've got lots of
yeah,
tips. You know, if anyone wants to know, they can just drop me an email or a message, or join up, subscribe, or to our newsletter. But I'm happy to help anyone who wants to self-publish. It really is, you know, it's a special place for us and our kids, and I want our kids to publish too, so that they can be writers.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm gonna add you to that list of contacts for self-publishing.
absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody that's joining us today, whether you're joining us live or just watching this recording. We thank you for taking part. Feel free to put comments. We've got this video on Facebook and on YouTube. So just put your comments in there and share your thoughts on how you use how you use books specifically, or anything really, to really just nurture that imagination in our kids. Just one of the ways that we help them grow and raise them up. So thanks
Absolutely.
for tuning in, and we will see you next week. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.